Thank you so very much. Good evening. My name is Bob Steele, and on behalf of the Board of Trustees of the Aspen Institute, thank you very much for joining us this evening for our fall dinner here in New York. On behalf of all of my fellow trustees, we'd like to give special thanks to dinner chairs Mercedes and Sid Bass, and as you might guess, especially to Mercedes, our fellow trustee, for her leadership, generosity, and expertise. The Aspen Institute certainly appreciates all she does for our organization throughout the year, but especially for this evening's program. And to our other dinner vice chairs and underwriters, the Henry and Gladys Crown Charitable Trust Fund, Evelyn and Leonard Lauder, the John P. and Ann Welsh McNulty Foundation, and Tishman Speyer. Thank you all. We hope you all enjoy our evening together, and I can tell you all of us at the Institute so much appreciate your support in being here with this evening. We're here to celebrate the work of the Aspen Institute and its accomplishments over the past year. We're also here to honor some of the extraordinary individuals who personify the Aspen Institute's notion of values-based leadership. The program is going to be adjusted just a little bit, but it's all the same, but we're going to go in a bit of a different order. A little while, in just a few minutes, after people's main courses are served, we'll present our 2 leadership awards, and directly following those presentations, you'll hear from our 2 honorees in a dialogue that will be focused on leadership, the theme of the Aspen Institute, and will be moderated by Christiane Amanpour of ABC News. After that conversation, dessert will be served, and we have another exciting aspect, which will be the presentation and recognition of an award for some very young and special leaders that we think you'll be excited to meet. So please enjoy your meal and good conversation, and shortly Bill Mayer, my fellow trustee and former chair, will come forward in a little while to introduce our award winners. Thank you very much for being here.
I'm Bill Mayer. It is my honor to introduce Leonard Lauder, who is, as you know, from the program, is the recipient of the Corporate Leadership Award. Everybody here I knows what a resume is, and all of us in this room at one point or another have tried to put down what we've done in a form of what is commonly called a resume. And I have never liked resumes at all. And I want to give you an example of why I don't like them. And of course, Leonard is the example. So Leonard went to college. He then went in the U.S. Navy, which he would freely tell you, as he's told a number of us, was a transformative experience for him and helped develop a lot of the traits that he has carried on for his entire life, both personally and professionally, and I'll get to those in a minute or two. Obviously, many people in the world associate him with Estée Lauder, which he ran for many, many years, and took the company from a medium-sized company to obviously one of the best recognized brands, regardless of the kind of product, anywhere in the world. He's past chairman of the Aspen Institute, where he's been a trustee for decades. Leonard, I won't say how many decades, 3. Very involved with Sloan Kettering. Evelyn, his wife, has taken the lead. Evelyn's delighted to see you here tonight. You look great. Okay. The arts, of course, chairman of the Whitney for many, many years, very generous to that organization, and quite often associated with Leonard together. Education, University of Pennsylvania Leadership Institute. Right? We must have a graduate here. And of course, more recently, the Alzheimer's Foundation, doing some groundbreaking work on the issue of memory and why it happens and what we can do about it. Pretty impressive, right? The problem is, it tells you what he did, but it really doesn't tell you who he is. And of course, that's the problem with a resume. So who is Leonard? Well, when I meet people, I separate them into two categories. There are some people in this world who are takers, and there are others that are givers. It's not hard to figure out who Leonard is and which side of the line he falls into. It's obviously he's a giver. He has energy, he's disciplined, he's driven. The discipline, to a great degree, comes from his experience in the Navy. He's insightful. He has an unbelievable antenna to sense what's going on, almost regardless of the subject and where it's happening. But I think one of the more important attributes of Leonard is this is one of the most caring people I know. I look out at the audience, of course I won't use names, but I know a number of you, including myself, that relied on Leonard and Evelyn for help at one point or another. In my case, it was my brother when he was diagnosed with colon cancer and wanted to go to Sloan Kettering and had trouble getting in to see a doctor. Called Leonard and Evelyn, and as they say, the door opened. And it was something, of course, I'll never forget, but it wasn't unique to me. This is just who he is. He just does that without even thinking. That's just Leonard. So I think when I try to summarize the difference between what he has done and who he is, I think it's perfect for the Aspen Institute, because at Aspen, we try to spend a lot of time taking people who are very accomplished in things they have done and try to make them understand each other and become better people, understanding why they are who they are and what they can do, just because it's a part of their personality. So Leonard, you fit Aspen perfect, and Aspen fits perfect for you. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Bill. Thank all of you. Listen, please eat. I come from a family where if there's food on the table and you're not eating it, we get very threatened. Just don't clank too much. Thank you, Bill, for that very kind introduction. And earlier, thank you, Bob Steele, for your leadership of the Aspen Institute. It's been incredible. And in advance, congratulations to Vartan Gregorian, who'll be receiving the Henry Crown Leadership Award a little bit later on. Let me tell you, before I get to that, I have to tell you the greatest pleasure in my life is my family. And I'm here with my wife, Evelyn. There's that gorgeous girl right over there. Evelyn, 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 Evelyn. Why did I make her stand up other than the fact that I love her? Because the big question tonight is, what should I wear? Did I do okay? And my son William, who is right over here, and my son Gary Lauder. And special thanks to my old friend Tony Kobayashi and his gorgeous wife Momo, who have come all the way here from Tokyo. Not only is he the founder and chairman and CEO of Aspen in Japan, but is also a graduate of the Vartan School MBA at University of Pennsylvania. So that gives us a great connection. And thank you all for giving me the Corporate Leadership Award. Let me tell you a little bit about my love for Aspen. I'm passionate about the Aspen Institute. I first went there in 1978 for what was then called the Aspen Executive Seminar, now known as the Aspen Seminar. It changed my life. It opened up the doors and the windows to wisdom that I had never been exposed to before. The people I met were phenomenal. The way the meetings were run, the moderators were great. I learned that there was new life out there, and that if we simply took the values-based leadership that the Aspen Seminar taught us and brought us to our daily lives, we would make this a better place and make the world a better place. So the concept of this values-based leadership was so important to me that I have been proselytizing everyone I can see. I put my arm on their shoulder. It's not to raise money for the Aspen Institute, but to get them to come, because that will change your life as it changed my life. So please, when the Aspen Institute writes you a letter and doesn't ask for money, but asks for you, say yes, because it will change your life the way it has changed my life. And may I suggest that we send some of our politicians there also. Because this is a time in our nation's history when the leaders that we have, if they're well educated and they know how to compromise, this will make a big difference to us all. So let's think about this country of tomorrow, and the country of tomorrow will be better because of the Aspen Institute. We need the Aspen Institute, and thank you, Aspen Institute, for what you've done for me, for my family, and for everyone in this room. Thank you. Oh.
Put on the table with the rest of them, huh?
Now, this is where, for those of you who know me, I get very insistent. When I looked at the program and saw that my friend of 30 years, Vartan Gregorian, was going to receive the Henry Crown Leadership Award, I said, I have to be the person that introduces him. So, Vartan, I hope that you will forgive me for insisting that I be the one, because I don't think there's anyone in this room who knows you as long, except for Claire, and as well as I do. We've worked together first at the University of Pennsylvania. I first met him, he was dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, then became the provost. Then he moved on from there to become the head of the New York Public Library, which is extraordinary. He changed that institution from a sleepy institution that lent books to one of the most dynamic organizations in the city, if not in this nation. He went on from there to be the head of Brown University, then Carnegie, and in each case he's transformed them. Now, let me give you an insight into this man, about his passions. Vartan's sister didn't have the opportunity to go to college, and that has always been a source of regret for him. As a result, One of the things that he's done with Carnegie is to put so much money and effort and energy into education, which is the core of what this world needs. He once said, and I have to quote from Vartan, if you educate a man, you educate a gypsy. He leaves and doesn't come back. But if you educate a woman, you educate a society. By the way, Vartan, everything you say becomes public record, and I found everything. So, the idea behind much of his work is he has worked to create thousands of scholarships for women in sub-Saharan Africa. He has placed millions of dollars in public education and has been instrumental in consistent in investing in the human capital of teachers in New York City, because teachers give him the ability to create great new people. And we are honored tonight to have Joel Klein, who is the Chancellor of the New York City Public School System, right here. Joel. I am a graduate of the New York City Public School System. If anyone wants to know, PS 87, and then the Bronx High School of Science. And I love this city and love the people who support the teachers of New York. So, if I may, when Vartan was first leaving the University of Pennsylvania, there was a meeting of the trustees of the university, and which, as you probably know, Vartan, I had something to do with. And when he was departing Penn, the president, Martin Meyerson, quoted, "Vartan has been a teacher to us all." Vartan, you've been a teacher to me and to all of us. So we welcome you to this. Yeah. I would like to introduce you to Mr. Francis Hoffman, who will say a few words of introduction of Vartan. How are you, Francis?
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's a hell of an act to follow. I got news for you. Wow. You know, the Henry Crown Leadership Award was created to honor an outstanding leader whose achievements reflected the high values and standards of integrity, industry, and philanthropy that categorized the life and career of Henry Crown. And the award is presented annually by the trustee of the Henry and Gladys Crown Charitable Trust in cooperation with the Henry Crown Fellowship at the Aspen Institute. So this evening, I'll briefly let you know about Henry Crown. His life was founded on the belief that ethics is one of the most valuable assets a person possesses, and success comes as a result of honorable acts. Tonight, we honor Vartan Gregorian with the Henry Crown Leadership Award for his outstanding leadership and distinguished service in the tradition of Henry Crown. Although Vartan is a recipient of numerous honors and awards, and perhaps numerous is a gross understatement, the Henry Crown Leadership Award is unique in that it represents not only Vartan's accomplishments, but the ethics and values that make him worthy. So therefore, Vartan, on behalf of the Henry and Gladys Crown Charitable Trust, Bill Mayer and I are extremely pleased to present you with the 2010 Henry Crown Leadership Award.
Thank you very much.
And there it is.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Oh, thanks very much. Thank you. Thank you. What can I say? Tonight is special because Henry Crown was a paragon of integrity, dignity, and leadership. It's a great honor for me to receive this award because it gives me the occasion to celebrate the life of an extraordinary man whose legendary career was built on a foundation of trust and respect. In business as in life, his word was his bond, and his promises were always kept. He believed that success in business must be matched by generosity and public service, that with wealth comes responsibility. Through his philanthropy and dedication to advancing his community and society, he set a lasting example for us all. But most importantly, he believed what Andrew Carnegie believed, that, and I quote, aristocracy is like potatoes. The best part is underground. People cannot claim about their ancestors. They themselves have to be deserving ancestors. And Andrew Carnegie was right. Henry Crown family descendants have become not potatoes underground, but the paragons of philanthropy, generosity, leadership, generation after generation. I'm very proud to know many of the Crown family members. I'm delighted that not only they have kept Chicago vibrant and alive artistically, culturally, but also many of the other cities internationally as well. And last but not least, I want to say a few words about Leonard. I wrote my remarks. I seldom do this. But because Leonard's back hurts, I've decided to be very brief, historical first. So, Leonard and I go back 30 years. I have met some of you, forgive me for saying, I'm not bragging about, but it's a fact. If you live in New York, you had New York Public Library, Brown University, Provost of University of Pennsylvania, et cetera. You meet many millionaires and now billionaires, because million isn't what it used to be. Even billion is not what it used to be. So I have seldom met one or three people, maybe, individuals like Leonard. Leonard is not only wealthy in money, in terms of money and wealth, but he's also exquisite in terms of social conscience, social responsibility. More importantly, he's also not only well-educated, but well-cultured. In Persian language, there's a word adab, A-D-A-B, which means you may be educated, but you still are not cultured. Ortega y Gasset reminded there are many educated people, but few cultured ones. Leonard is one of the few cultured ones. He, when I was dean and provost at University of Pennsylvania, insisted that business and culture are not mutually exclusive. To be educated, to be able to speak foreign language was not a liability, was a great asset. It was respect to France. It was respect to Germany, respect to China and all the other countries. When you spoke the language, you understood the language. That it was good for business, but more importantly, it was good for your leadership as a leader. He has also been a mentor of mine. What he did not say when I stepped down from the University of Pennsylvania provostship to come to New York Public Library later, he drafted a wonderful tribute to me, which was the only authentic thing I felt anybody in those difficult years could give it to me. Leonard has been a great friend, great mentor, but most importantly, he has been a socially responsible citizen of New York, citizen of the United States, citizen of the world. He's always done things right, because like Henry Crown, he believes in integrity, he believes his word, his bond, and most importantly, he believes that with wealth comes responsibility. And with responsibility comes obligations to see that the United States is a better place. Now, I have also to mention one other thing about Leonard. And because Joe Klein is here, he's one of my also wonderful friends and heroes. This city of New York, America, cannot afford to be mediocre. Democracy and excellence are not to be mutually exclusive. Democracy and excellence are mutually inclusive because whenever it's public, it doesn't have to be ugly, it does not have to be mediocre, it does not have to be obsolete. All the major institutions that were built in the 19th century, libraries, telegraph stations, post offices, banks, all of them were magnificent buildings to pay tribute to democracy because the public deserved the respect that democracy owed to that public. And Leonard is one of them who believes that our democracy and excellence are not mutually exclusive, that excellence does not belong in the private domain alone. It belongs also to the public domain. And that's one of the reasons I salute not only Leonard, but also Evelyn and the entire Leonard family, because they have always done what was right and done with conviction rather than expediency. So for my mentor and my dear friend, tonight I'd like to thank you publicly for the first time. I've never had occasion to do this, and to pay tribute to all the teachers who are here, all the people who believe in our democracy, and all of them who believe America is not perfect, but is perfectible, that democracy is an agenda still to be completed. Leonard, thank you. Thank you, Aspen Institute, for doing this today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Leonard Lauder, in 30 years, we've had a lot of ups and downs at the Aspen Institute. Leonard was always there, and more than anybody else, he helped make sure the Aspen Institute survived. And I want to say something about Vartan. When my hometown of New Orleans was hit by the hurricane, there were two people who came forward right away and said they'd help. One is Judy Roden, who was here, who said, we can do the planning process. But Vartan came right in and helped with the libraries and getting the schools reopened. And it really meant he's a hero in New Orleans. He also is somebody who, throughout the years, has really embodied the bipartisan spirit. I know that he helped nurture Dick Clark's program, which is our congressional program of Democrats and Republicans working together in seminars, something now needed more than ever. And finally, the reason I never write a long introduction to an Aspen report is the best thing ever written was an introduction he started as a Carnegie report on Islam in America, which is something everybody should read today. But it's an absolutely beautiful work that's been published, and people should get it. When I first went to CNN, my very first week at CNN, I was standing in the newsroom a little bit out of place in Atlanta, and I became mesmerized by looking at the screen and watching Christiane Amanpour do an unbelievably smart series. This is before 9/11. This is a month before 9/11, about Islam, the role of women. It was a great series that helped us understand the Muslim world. Right in the middle of that playing, one of the people at the news desk came up to me and says, we have a car chase we're about to cut to. We're going to break out of this segment because there's a car chase in Los Angeles. I have proven myself clueless about how television worked, and I said at the time, well, that's ridiculous. This is, we're not going to break into Christiane for that. I said, no, people love car chases. Well, we didn't break into it. We kept Christiane's report on the air, but the next day I saw all the numbers of the other two networks spike because they took the car chase. But it reminded me that there are two ways to go in journalism. One is to dumb it down and play just for the ratings. The other is to be responsible and to realize you're doing a great public duty. Christiane represents that. But more importantly, she represents the fact that you can succeed doing that you don't have to do badly doing that you can do well by doing good. What Christiane Amanpour has done has been to be the most outstanding foreign correspondent who has now risen to be one of the great anchors of our time. Whenever I despair about journalism in this world, I just think of Christiane Amanpour. It's my great pleasure to introduce her as our moderator tonight.
Thank you, Vartan. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mwah. Congratulations, Leonard. Thank you so much, everybody. What a wonderful evening. What a beautiful, beautiful place. It's my pleasure to spend a few moments talking and trying to sort of plumb the minds of these excellent, excellent citizens who've been so warmly talked about tonight and who've been so rightly rewarded. You spoke, both of you, just as you were getting your awards, about democracy and excellence, about education being the basis of our democracy and our economy, of course. And you spoke about compromise and how the Aspen Institute is central to that ideal. I want to just start right now, given the fact that we've just had an election, and given the fact that everybody is asking which way this country is going to go, and are these two very polarized parties going to be able to actually exit from the gridlock and find solutions to the very real problems that America and the world faces right now? So given what you have done and what everybody knows you've done, how does one find compromise, whether it be in business, whether it be in the arts, whether it be in education, whether it be in public service or politics? Let me start with you, Leonard. How do two entities which are diametrically opposed right now, find compromise to find a solution?
Well, right after the election, I had said to someone that if I were the President of the United States, I would call the two parties in together, the leader of both houses and the Senate, and say, okay, guys, I don't care what you vote on, if it's whether apple pie is going to be the American apple pie, I want the first bit of legislation to come onto my desk being totally bipartisan that you both agree on. I don't care what it is. Don't send anything to me until you can show that you can work together on something. Well, the president didn't call me, and that didn't happen. But compromise is always possible if you decide, if our two parties in power decide that they are Americans, not Republicans or Democrats. Then anything is possible. If, however, you start off here and there, we have problems. And for those of you who have looked at the history of the world, maybe the Byzantium Empire, you can see where two opposing parties that should have a unanimity of interest don't. So don't get me started on that, because you'll be here for scrambled eggs tomorrow morning. Thank you.
Thank you. And from your experience, Vartan, whether it was as provost at the University of Pennsylvania or at Brown or the Public Library or now at Carnegie, from your experience, how did you, or did you ever have to execute that kind of compromise in order to get something important done?
Well, Woodrow Wilson said years ago, he came to American politics, to really politics, academic politics. He was president of Princeton. He knew what he was talking about. The issues are the following, and I don't mind to intervene in this. Recently, I told a friend, I don't understand why we don't have political platforms anymore. Both parties' platform, Democratic and Republican, in the past generated lots of excitement, walkouts, denunciations. But it shows America making compromise within Democratic Party, within Republican Party. And that astonished me now. Every politician is his own platform, her own platform. That has surprised me. Why we don't, the president and everybody else in the past said, according to Democratic Party platform, according to the Republican Party platform, we have adopted the following resolutions, the following guidelines. It allowed them, in a sense, to make compromises and hide behind it, rather than everybody now is explaining his own personal platform, and therefore showing the kind of disunity, lack of compromise, ability to compromise, which we saw in conventions, they compromise. That's why, if you remember very well, Hubert Humphrey said, Democratic Party is a big tent. So did Ronald Reagan. They brought the left, moderator, and others, harmonized it in order to show that compromise was part of American democracy. We're not in a country of absolutes. We're a country of rational dialogue to do the art of the possible. And that's what has surprised me. In academic institutions that I have served, naturally, you always have to think, what's the middle ground? Because diplomacy is to make the art of possible, to make compromise. Compromise is not a bad word. Compromise is to find, that one of my distinguished predecessor, John Gardner, said, to find the common ground. And that's what is missing. What is the common ground? And there's so much ego, so much personality, so much others are at stake that people forget the common ground. That America always, if you want to see dissensions, accusations, read 19th century politics. People accused each other of treason and all the others. We face now the same kind of situation where issues should be discussed, not ad hominem remarks. People should not go dig out somebody's high school to see whether he's a good American or not. We should deal with issues, not with ad hominem.
Well, I want to ask you both then about the public sphere and the public debate and the public language and the national conversation that's happening, and pick up on something that Walter said, that the media has been dumbing down for many, many years. Do you believe that the public debate, let's just take this election campaign, has been one that's been worthy of a democratic election in the most powerful country in the world?
I don't think so. Look, how can you have proper debate when there's anger, hostility, invective, all those things that go on? No, I don't listen to the talk shows. However, my taxi drivers do, and that's so I hear them all. And it's horrifying to me. And if you were someone who was less educated and didn't know what they were talking about, you would think that all of this was true, and out with all them. I would like to commend you if you, unless you think he's too liberal a writer, Frank Rich's op-ed piece in the Times of 2 weeks ago, where he said no matter who wins, there'll still be anger. Because once anger is unleashed, it's hard to put the genie back into the bottle. So let's try, and this is where I love the Aspen Institute, because we are trying to teach people, the people on both sides of the aisle, to be civil to each other, because civility will solve all those problems. I fear we're entering an uncivil period.
I read a lot. I'm a news junkie, as my wife will testify. Every Sunday I read 8 British and French newspapers. I read every day 4 newspapers. I read all the magazines in order to have a perspective, in order to deprogram myself. What I hear on television, the debate, I'm absolutely surprised because there's one thing missing. Most dangerous thing I read was in Washington Post, that I have my facts, you have your facts. That's a dangerous thing. Facts ought to be agreed upon, opinions can differ. But now what I find, opinion is passed as fact. And their people's egos are involved. You have to fight for your own opinions under the guise of fact.
Right, yeah.
And that's especially in science and so forth. I don't understand.
Right.
Just to pursue this briefly before I move on, as an educator and as the custodian of the minds of the future, and given that education is fundamental to not just our democracy, but also to our economies, do you think that we are now reaping the 10 to 20 years of consistent dumbing down that has been going on in all spheres?
I don't think it's dumbing down as much as living in the present. We are living at a time, most unhistorical time in United States history. Maybe it always was this, I don't know. But I find that history is missing. So, and then I find also civics is missing in our K-12 education systems because it's confrontation, it's controversial. Everybody looks at civics textbooks to see how many times Cesar Chavez is mentioned, how many times George Washington is missing, how many times Eisenhower is mentioned, and after looking at the index, they damn the civic book. Well, I have proposed, I hate to tell you this, 4 justices of United States Supreme Court. I said, why don't you write a textbook on the basis of how American history, American Revolution, American society has been shaped through 10 major important decisions in the past, not present. So Americans can understand that this democracy is so dynamic, there's history to it, there's ideal to it. At the same time, as Carnegie Corporation, now we're trying to make people become citizens rather than remain as green card resident aliens, because you cannot take advantage of economic benefits of the United States, considering the United States as a reservoir of money and economy, but not become a citizen in order to partake benefits of our Constitution, because the title citizen is the most important thing as Romans discovered. And I like Americans to be proud to be citizens. And with citizenship comes responsibility. You have to know about our country's past. You have to know about country's current. You have to know our culture. You have to know international affairs. You cannot just retreat in the pygmy world of your private piety. I have made up my mind. I don't want to be bothered and so forth. And my facts are as good as any other facts because I have footnotes. People confuse footnotes as scientific evidence. And as I discovered when I came to the United States in 1956, I bought, in August 1950, I bought John Walsh's Black Book, John Birch Societies.
Yeah.
When I read that Eisenhower was conscientious agent of world communism, as a foreign student, I was appalled. How could anybody accuse President of the United States be a conscientious communist? But one of my friends said, there are many footnotes, namely scientifically. You can put any footnote.
Interestingly, quite a lot of the John Birch history is now forming quite a lot of the, with the Tea Party movement.
If I may, I just want to inject something here, okay? The No Child Left Behind legislation, which some of you may be familiar with, gave extra money to our school systems around the nation for mathematics and science. Notice there was no money for history or civics. As a result, slowly but surely over the years, over the past few years, those two subjects have been dropped from our elementary and high school education systems. Give this enough time and people will not know what the Constitution is, who is the President of the United States today, who was the President of the United States yesterday, and who the only person we do know is George Washington because he's on our dollar bill. So that I believe we need changes in legislation on that No Child Left Behind, because if we lose our sense of understanding the Constitution, we lose our souls and we lose tomorrow.
Actually, Leonard, there was a response in a Gallup poll. Several people said Stalin was president of the United States after Roosevelt.
Okay.
Because
President of the United States.
President of the
I
United
wonder
States.
whether you say, maybe next year or tomorrow people are going to forget the Constitution. It was already displayed that those who tout most fervently the Constitution are not fully aware of the Constitution during the debates in this election campaign. Let me ask
Isn't she good?
Let me ask you something. You talked about decisions and what you've had to do in your businesses and what world leaders have to do. Give us, since we are awarding you, since you have been awarded for your leadership skills, give us an idea of what led you, how did you come to seek the best in people? Did you ever learn from any mistakes? Give us a big mistake that shaped you, Leonard. Come on, Leonard. There must have been one.
The greatest mistake I made was several years ago. I ran a seminar in France, in French, to how to export to the United States. And I asked 3 French businessmen to speak for 5 minutes each on the greatest mistakes they made in entering the American market. I made 2 mistakes. Number one, in thinking that any Frenchman could say, I made a mistake, and number 2, that any French businessman could talk for 5 minutes only on anything. I ducked that pretty well, didn't I?
You did, you ducked it. You ducked it. Should I plunge the knife in? I'll try to plunge the knife in you because I'm being nice. Did you ever learn from a mistake?
I've always learned from my mistakes because one of the things I learned early in my childhood, as you know, I was born in Iran, and I was educated by my illiterate yet wise grandmother, peasant grandmother. I learned 2 things. If you don't know something, don't pretend you know. Sooner or later, they'll get you. Second thing, I learned very much so, that it's all right, though everybody can cope with success. It's how you cope with failure and adversity that will determine your character. And that has been with me throughout things. So like Leonard, as any administrative position, I've always taken upon myself as responsible for anything that went wrong. Because otherwise, you will not be able to succeed.
And what was your I mean, I talked about a mistake, but Vartan has talked about an early lesson. What was your early founding lesson? What led you to who you are today sitting in this chair?
Well, Bill Mayer mentioned my time in the U.S. Navy. I joined the Navy back, if you can believe it, back in 1954, entered it in January 1955. Signed up for what amounted to 8 years, 3.5 years active duty and another 5 years in reserves. And the reason I did that was one reason, and that is that I felt the Navy would give me great leadership training, and indeed it did. And the mistakes I made along the way were not terrible, but they were mistakes in leadership. And my boss was a man who I still respect and admire, would call me in and gently chide me and teach me. And he said to me, you know, I've made those mistakes myself, and let me help you. In truth, even though my earlier answer seemed to be sort of flipped to say I haven't made mistakes, I am proud of my mistakes because I learn about them, I learn from them, and importantly this, I share my mistakes with the people who are around me because I want them to learn from me. And the interesting thing is, how often can people say, I was wrong, but this is what I did wrong?
I'd like to add one thing along the same lines, and I forgot I should have answered that way. My first lesson I learned when I graduated from high school, French Lycée in Beirut. I gave valedictory speech. It was too long, like tonight. I did not know about the topic, and everybody resented it. But my high school principal said something very important, which till today governs my life. He said, they never admonish you, they tell a story. So the story was this, that Mr. Gregorian, there was this archbishop who used to give such lengthy sermons that occasionally the congregation would leave. One day, the doorman came to him. He was kept going on Sunday. He said, Archbishop, when you finish, you'd like to lock up the road. That really hit me right here. Second thing, which I have used a lot, was the fact that he said about my subject. There was this painter who gave a life-size portrait exhibition, and somebody came and said, are you the painter? He said, shoelaces are not made that way. He said, what's your profession, sir? I'm a shoemaker. So the painter picked up the brush and fixed the shoelaces. And then shoemaker said, I don't like the mustache. And the painter said, please do not rise above the shoe. Throughout my life, those are two lessons I learned very much. Don't talk about things you don't know anything about. Don't go lengthy, and don't avoid the issues.
Okay. That's good, that's good. I have one last question as we prepare to wrap this conversation up. You spoke, both of you, and obviously you are so well known for your philanthropy and for your deep, deep love and help of New York City in the arts and elsewhere. And you spoke about the great buildings of yesteryear that were built to respect the democracy and respect the people who would have to use those great buildings. As we all know, many of the states and cities of this country are in deep trouble right now. Some will default. Some will have a lot of problems as the economic crisis continues. What advice do you have for urban leaders right now to try to salvage what they can and to really create a better infrastructure and keep moving this country forward in that regard?
Go ahead.
Thank you. He's a good friend. Look, every city, every state is different, okay? And in order to solve your problems, this is where, in my comment earlier, telling people they have to be Americans, not Republicans or Democrats. Whoever leads those cities or states has got to try the best they can to bring both sides together in advance, not with rhetoric, not with speeches in front of large audiences or to TV, to say, we have to our city. Let's talk about what we're going to do. Because the worst thing that can happen is to turn a city's crisis into a political football. And when the United States, rather when New York City ran into some troubles some years ago, the Republicans and Democrats came together as one, and we saved this great city, and that spirit still lives today.
Well, my answer is the following. Immigration has been a source of renewal of America. If you bring Vietnamese in a city that Americans have abandoned or is declined, they're so hungry to build a new society, a new community, they will do that. Because they're not conscious of this job or that job. For them, America is land of opportunity. And it's remarkable to see, there was an editorial in today's New York Post, actually, saying all the individuals who have been elected during Republican and so forth, immigrants who have been elected. And the whole idea is how to build faith that we are able to do it. I'm a beneficiary of California's optimism and Texas's, where I spent 4 years there. Texas, we can do it. That spirit has to emerge, not defeatism, because the whole idea that we are in charge, and that was one of the things initially I was so impressed. My wife is going to hate me for saying this, Alexis de Tocqueville's name, because he coined the term individualism to describe the American character. But individually, his notion of individualism had a public component and private component. It was not elevation of the self about the public, but how you could delay gratification so that the whole community can build. It's that past aspect. I saw some magazine yesterday said, me the people, instead of we the people. We have cultivated the self almost as idolatry. We are a nation. As Martin Luther King said, we came in different ships, but we're in the same boat again, with the same boat. We have to be able to realize, as a nation, we are one, we're in the same boat. We have to work very much to renovate, reconstruct our country, rather than tear it apart. Because when I was in China, as Fulbright scholar, I learned one thing. The minister said, you Americans look at your watch, but we Chinese look at our calendar. This whole idea of long-term thinking versus short-term fighting here, Everybody outside are happy. We are involved in this little thing. Go to Afghanistan, go to Iraq, be busy here, be busy there. Let us build our economies while you're very much engaged in that. And especially our divisions, people will underestimate our divisions as final divisions rather than temporary disagreements. And that's what worries me about, because people, when we talk to each other, we attack at each other, people think, oh, we're the only ones who hear, listen. We don't know the whole world listens. And therefore, they discount what we say, and they discard what we say. And that's my main worry, that America should be, again, optimistic, that we can do it, and we've done it, and we'll always do it, because we have no other choice. When you're in the middle of the ocean, you cannot think of, am I going to reach the destination or not? It's a non-dialectical question. If you quit smoking, if you quit swimming, you'll die, you'll drown. And that's what we're, we have to keep swimming, trying, whether we get destination now or our children will get, that's the issue, but we cannot quit.
All right. On that optimistic note, thank you.
Thank you.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vartan Gregorian.
Thank you.
Leonard Lauder, congratulations. Thank you so much.